It never had anything to do with protecting the rights of minorities or not offending people or being nice or anything like that. It was a very simple thing to tell people like my ancestors, comrade, this may be factually correct, but it is politically incorrect. And what that means is you are not adhering to the party line, right? And to me, the fact that we adopted a Chinese-style response to that sort of threat signals that we are moving in an authoritarian direction. And the thing that scared me most, this is not a popular thing to say, but I think it's true, at least in our country. It wasn't the politicians that did this. It was the people. Mm-hmm. They wanted this. Poll after poll after poll after poll. 20% of people want nightclubs shut down permanently, mm-hmm. irrespective of COVID. Irrespective of COVID, Dave. They want to shut down things just because there's an opportunity to do so. Wear masks on public transport, 40% or 30%, forever. Doesn't matter if there's COVID. We shot the bed. And I'm really uncomfortable with what happened.
Let's talk about the COVID thing a little bit, because obviously it has framed almost everything over the last couple of years. I went radically anti-mandate and pro-freedom, literally moved my entire life across the country in the midst of it because of all of the craziness. I sense you're in a similar spot when it came to mandates and things of that matter, but what was your evolution like related to all that?
I supported the first lockdown in the UK. We didn't know what was going on. And we were told it was very dangerous. And while we should all be skeptical, of course, of what the mainstream media tell us in that sort of situation, I do think as a responsible citizen, you do have a duty to at least consider it. And remember, what we were told in the UK is this is going to be 3 weeks. We're going to solve the problem. Everything's fine.
They told you 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
We got 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
They told us either 2 weeks or 15 days. Well, they were always working with one extra day.
The longest 3 weeks in human history, those turned out to be. So at the beginning, I supported the first lockdown, but from there, I just felt that we went in a dystopian direction very, very quickly. And on the basis of data that to me didn't seem reasonable, we were forced to wear these face nappies that don't do anything, as we know. And not only do we know that now, we knew that before. Mm-hmm. We knew that before, right? And I think it signals to me something I talk about in the book, actually, that we are importing ways of doing business that are fundamentally anti-Western. And we have this from the UK. Neil Ferguson, not the historian who we love, but the guy who was essentially behind advising the government to have the lockdowns. He was a scientist in the UK.
That must have been tough for our Neil Ferguson.
Yeah, I imagine so. So he said in, I think it's a Times article, that we didn't know lockdowns were possible until we saw what the Chinese were doing.
I mean, what a horrific...
And I think this speaks to something else. One of the things I mention in the book is most people don't know. Do you know where political correctness comes from? The term itself.
The term political correctness?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
The Soviet Union. And it never had anything to do with protecting the rights of minorities or not offending people or being nice or anything like that. It was a very simple thing to tell people like my ancestors, comrade, this may be factually correct, but it is politically incorrect. And what that means is you are not adhering to the party line, right? And to me, the fact that we adopted a Chinese-style response to that sort of threat signals that we are moving in an authoritarian direction. And the thing that scared me most, this is not a popular thing to say, but I think it's true, at least in our country. It wasn't the politicians that did this. It was the people. Mm-hmm. They wanted this. Poll after poll after poll after poll. 20% of people want nightclubs shut down permanently, irrespective of COVID. Irrespective of COVID, Dave. They want to shut down things just because there's an opportunity to do so. Wear masks on public transport, 40% or 30%, forever. Doesn't matter if there's COVID. We shot the bed. And I'm really uncomfortable with what happened.
You know what day it was for me that I realized what nonsense it was? Because I'm with you. The first 2 weeks, I granted everybody a long leash. And I can even grant, in retrospect, a longer leash. We were so hit in the head. It was the first time we had dealt with this. I think we've all learned a lot, and hopefully a certain portion of us won't do it again. But for me, it really was day 15. Once they said 2 weeks to stop the spread, and we rolled into day 15, because it changed overnight. They kept saying the new normal. And once I started hearing the new normal everywhere, it was on commercials, it was on NBC, CNN, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Something else is going on here. And then that clearly bore out to be true. But what do you think that says about human nature or the spiritual side of what's going on here, that we actually wanted it? And from an American perspective, I don't know if this is quite true from a UK perspective, we voted in a lot of the same people that did this. Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom, the list goes on and on.
Well, we know this throughout history. I sort of joked during the pandemic at some point that, this is at least the one thing that hasn't happened yet is we haven't blamed the Jews. But we did just about everything. It was just about everything else, right? So when people are scared, when bad things are going on, people, the instincts come out and the worst side comes out. And it's like human beings, on an individual level, when you're having a bad day, all your worst aspects of your personality are magnified and the best ones are dampened, right? And I tell you what it was for me. For me, it was what happened over BLM in the UK that really showed me that this is a complete nonsense, because we had this first lockdown, which I and almost everybody obeyed to the letter and had a lot of respect for. There was another moment when the sun first came out. It's a rare occurrence in England, and some people had the temerity to go outside and sunbathe.
My God!
And this was by this point, it was very clear that this virus does not spread well outdoors. And I said on Twitter that I think people should be allowed to sunbathe, and I don't know what I could compare it to, the reaction that I got. So I thought people were starting to lose their minds, but then we saw the whole country having been locked down for this entire time. BLM happens, and suddenly protests outside without masks are a public health intervention.
They were actually pro-public health. That's what we were told here, because racism was a bigger problem.
They're to be celebrated. Yeah. They're to be encouraged. If you want to live in a Western liberal democracy in which people are judged on the content of their character, that can't happen. That can't happen. And to me, that was the moment when I just went, okay, this is done. And to the point where, I remember speaking at a protest in Parliament Square outside the Houses of Parliament in London, when they were trying to force medical staff to have a vaccine in order to remain in their post. And it's interesting. I've never told the story publicly, or maybe no, I don't think I have. When my wife gave birth, she had quite a long and difficult labor, and it was supposed to be at home. She wanted to give birth at home, but we had to go to hospital because it wasn't going well. And it was a long and difficult and scary and all the rest of it. But as it was looking like things were going to get really bad, this midwife came in, who was a higher level midwife than the other ones, and she was like this angel. She was incredible, and she helped my wife give birth naturally. It was just like she fixed the thing. Right? It was beautiful. It was amazing. And afterwards, all the other midwives had left, and she was just filling out some forms, and she was asking us various questions. And my wife, who was pregnant at the time the vaccine came out, wasn't going to have it. And this midwife was reading the thing. She goes, asking various questions. Then she said, "Are you vaccinated?" And my wife's just given birth. I'm sort of trying to look after her. I don't want her to, but equally, I don't want, this medical professional to think that we're these wackos and whatever. Yeah. So I said, we were pregnant, and I start sort of fumbling for an answer that will please both sides, which is unlike me. And she said, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not vaccinated." And we had a conversation. I said, "So you must have felt really bad when the government was trying to force you to be vaccinated." And she said, "I was going to quit." That woman would not have been there if the government had carried on with that program. And so for all the crap we took for standing up on that issue, I felt that to me was the ultimate vindication that happened. It's a story that I really appreciate and think about a lot, and that's when, we talked about being brave and whatever. nonsense. We all got to say what we believe.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of mindless drivel, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.